I can see so many good things that came from tough times, and getting through those, um, that I would I would say that, through faith and through having a lot of good people around me, I've been able to get through some very difficult times.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I have John Van Groningen joining us from John Deck Painting. Thanks so much, John, for coming on the show.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
And I always like to start out with just why don't you, obviously, you're the owner and founder of John Deck Painting. Tell us just a little bit about who is John and give me like your 60-second bio.
Wow, 60 seconds is really not a long time, Chris, and I've already wasted some of it. So, been in the painting business for 37 years. Before that, I was actually a music teacher at a high school. I've done some choral music directing, and my wife and I are worship leaders as well. But then got into the painting 37 years ago, and built the company up with mostly residential and commercial repaint and some new construction as well.
That's awesome. I had no idea that you were into music. So you left, you no longer taught music as of 37 years ago, or do you still dabble or volunteer here and there?
Right. No, I gave up the actual teaching part of it. I enjoyed my 6 years of teaching, but there were parts of it I didn't enjoy, and parts of it that I really didn't want to put up with for as much as I needed to. The bells and the babysitting part of teaching, it just didn't click with me. I've been able to do the choral music in churches with my wife and worship leading. So we've been able to keep in touch with it that way.
That's awesome. I was going to say, in middle school, I played trombone. In grade school, I think it was in sixth grade, everyone had to play an instrument. And so they're like, "You've got long arms, Chris. Why don't you play trombone?" And I was like, okay. So I did that for sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And then in high school, I did my freshman and sophomore year, we had to take a music class, and I did choir. And I was so embarrassed and nervous and self-conscious that I did it, but I like never did a solo. I even hated like when the bass section, like just the six of us or whatever, when we had to sing without everybody else, that stressed me out too. So it was like I completed my choir commitment, and I got, passing grade in the class. But like, I think it was once or twice a year we had to do like our final or whatever with just us and the teacher. Gosh, I hated it, and I wish that I didn't. I wish that I was like more. I don't know what it is. Just I love dancing and being a fool and looking stupid, but for whatever reason, like singing, just always been self-conscious about it. So I don't know if you got any advice on that, but that's just when you bring up choir, I'm like, oh no, all these like bad memories of high school and nervousness and self-conscious, Chris. So.
I wish I'd had you then, Chris. I could have had you singing more. I could have had you singing more. No, look, it's one of those things that I think it's a group thing. If you get integrated into the choir where you feel comfortable, you might have wanted to do it a little bit more, but not everybody wants to sing right away, and that's okay. That's okay.
And I think it's probably, I mean, maybe there's some business advice in here too, but it's like I liked to I knew that if I like practiced and could be good, that I would enjoy it more. But I was just so nervous of screwing up that I was just in the background. But then the funny thing was that other parts of my high school life, I was very outgoing. Like I would lead assemblies and cheers and do all this stuff. But singing was just like I just felt like I didn't know if I was singing on tune or whatever, and just that fear of getting made fun of, I guess, it terrified me. But now I've got 3 kids, and I always joke I've got some very talented musicians that are friends, and I tell them that I am certain that my 3 kids think that I am as talented of a musician just with my singing as this guy that I am, because the kids have no idea. We're just in the car singing. Yeah, they're just like, they love it, and they're super engaged and excited, and they don't know that their dad can't sing, because we're just singing loud and proud and having a good time singing whatever silly song is on the radio. So
I like
as
that.
long as I can pass that on to them, that's a win for me.
You got it. You got it for sure.
So let's jump into John's experience over the years. What I guess we could just start out open ended. Like if someone were to say, so you've been doing this for a little while, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned in the last? You said 36 years that you've been doing this.
Yeah, yeah, yep. 36, 37 in the 37th year now. Yeah. Yeah, Chris, I think one of the things I would say is that painting looks like it's such an easy business to get into, and in many ways it really is. And a lot of people can handle it, but um, there's also a reason why so many guys fail at it as well. Because on the business side of it, if you don't have a business background, it can be really difficult to get any further than having a few guys with you and depending on family and friends and contacts. Um, so to build a painting business is a lot different than just being able to be a good painter and have some good connections and be able to make some money. That's probably the number one lesson.
What were the like inflection points for you in the last 36 years, whether it was aha moments or meeting someone or hiring a coach or an employee or maybe a really bad experience with a customer that was like eye opening. But I'm sure that if you look back, there was some key like this changed everything. What were one or two of those?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, I would say that I realized after a few years that I was really fortunate that I had been a teacher for a while actually. So I had quite a few people that were aware of the fact that I'd made the switch from teaching into painting, and at that time a lot of wallpaper installation. And I was taught by a professional painter. I think that was one of the big things. A lot of teachers like to go out for the summer and then they just go out and paint houses. They don't get a lot of training. I was trained by a professional and trained how to do the wallpaper installation. Boy, back in the late 80s and all through the 90s, wallpaper installation was huge. And that's where I was able to really get established. But having a community more than just my family and friends, and having a community that would support me was really what helped me to get my feet under me for painting. And then, I really loved the idea that I could see a finished product every day or every 3 days or after a week. Being able to see once what you were able to accomplish and change people's homes and put a new house together, put the final touches on that. That part of it was really really good. So knowing that if you worked hard and were willing to put in the hours, you could make a good living. That was important in its own way. Um, but then I also realized that it was probably in the early '90s when things were really humming. One of my big challenges was um, I grew too fast. Had a lot of opportunity coming my way, and basically just hired anybody that said they could paint and put them on projects without proper training. Um, and I fell on my face, and that was a hard lesson, and lost the confidence of a lot of my customers, and realized that look, if I'm gonna run a business and grow, I've got to do that. I've got to do that differently. Um, so I would say the next lesson was that I had some really good people working for me that helped me to recover. Um, I had a son in the business with me at that time, and then a couple of other good crew leaders. And without them, I think we would have gone underneath. So having some really good, stable people that also enjoyed the business and were able to do things better than I could do. Uh, Man, look for the people who can do some parts of the business better than you can. That was a huge lesson for me, and I've kept that lesson throughout the rest of what I've done. I love finding people who do things better than I do. I found an estimator that's a better estimator than I am, and I have more than one. I love seeing them do estimating, and they're more natural salespeople than I was, and people organizing the field, great operations managers inside and out that really understand that part of it and can take off. And man, having a really good bookkeeper, wow, was that a game changer for me? I finally started understanding some of what I thought I knew about cash flow and money coming in and out, and realized, man, I'm not detailed, not nearly detailed enough to do this and to keep on top of it. Um, and I say the other major inflection point was um, when I finally got really serious about saying I do want to now invest and grow in my business. I was getting a business coach. I did not have a business background. I had a liberal arts college background, and that really carried me a long way. But having a business coach that could really tune me into things about business that I didn't understand and lead me through it, that was number one. And I would encourage anybody that doesn't have a business background, or even if you do, if you want to get better at your business, I think a business coach, if they're a good connection, if you make a good connection with them, they can be a key to getting a lot bigger and better.
Mm. You got so many things I want to comment on. I'm going to start with the most recent thing you said, um, the coach. I also like I would say what was it 2 years ago probably, maybe 2.5 3 years ago. I got a coach that was just like a like career life coach whatever. And now I have actually I'm in like a coaching group and I have a different coach now. And it's just like I was blown away now having a coach. I can't comprehend not having one. But I'm curious, was it a conversation that you had with someone? Was it just your own self awareness? Like, what was the thing that made you say, I should probably look into getting a coach? Or just like, were you seeing someone else that was having all this success and you're like, what are you doing? Like, what was because there's a lot of people, not only business owners, but just a lot of people that I don't know if it's pride or ego or what, but they're like, no, I don't need a coach. I don't, there's nothing wrong. But I think it takes some humility to say I do want a coach and then go actually hire one.
Yeah, I would say that for me, I've always wanted to learn. I've always tried to keep up in different ways, whether it's now podcasts or before it was a lot about reading magazines, getting on books, just trying to figure out the industry. So I joined what was at the time PDCA. Was the National Painting Association, and I joined them fairly early on, and found that a lot of what they had was pretty interesting. But it was actually at a conference when I went to a PDCA conference, and I heard somebody actually talk about a painting company um, that could grow without having to do commercial and industrial work. A residential painting company could be a pretty good sized company. I thought, wow, I wonder how they did that. And so I followed up with the speaker at that time, and that's what got me into it. It was like I want to learn the stuff that I don't know, and this guy seems like he really has it together.
And who was that?
And that was actually Kevin Nolan, who was the presenter,
Ah,
and then Brian Nolan, his brother, was the one that I ended up talking to. And being the
that's
nerd
awesome.
that I am, I went down to Philadelphia to interview Brian in his shop in his place to make sure I was going to have a good connection with him before I said, "Yep, I want to do it."
That's fantastic. Yeah, the Nolan family is super talented and just the impact that they've had on the business and painting world is incredible. Because I would 100% would agree with you. They're good people. They are themselves are disciplined individuals, and you can see that like permeate throughout their life. And yeah, that's awesome that that's where you saw them. Um, the I'm curious if you've got any other analogies or comments. If someone is like, what is the coach actually doing for you? What did they do for you? Or what would you tell someone that's debating getting a coach? What is it that a coach does?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a coach does is helps you understand all of the different aspects of a business. I mean, from the idea of knowing your finances is pretty basic, but getting a lot deeper. I never really understood a profit and loss, of P&L statement. I didn't understand it. I kind of knew what money was going and out, and well, one of my fondest memories actually is when I first got into the business. My wife and I would sit at the kitchen table, and we'd figure out exactly how much work I had done and what I was charging for it, and what our material costs were. So I got the basics, but really understanding beyond that when you grow a little bit, what's cost of goods sold and why does that matter? And how do I track my materials and what all goes into expenses? Because basically, it's really easy as an individual painter, or if you have a couple of guys working with you, even three or four. Hey, I've got this much money coming in. I was able to pay my materials bill. I think I have some good work out there. I'm feeling good, and that's all I needed to know. But you'll never grow to a stronger and more stable company without knowing a lot more than that. And even the idea of marketing, being able to say how do you market things and why should you market. That would be one of the things that they've helped me with. And then, being able to understand what kinds of systems are out there that can help you be a lot more organized. A CRM, a customer resource management system. What kind of why would that help me? I have my customer list. Why do I need anything more than that? How can I get beyond that? Um, Man, so many things like that you don't realize you need to know until somebody points out, hey, there's a way to do this better, or a way that you can scale it up, or have you thought about something like this that can really bring your organization together better? Um,
I love that. I was going to say that I remember still, I started like, I'm sure you've got, I actually would love to have you come up with a different example. The CRM's great because when I started, the first company I started was right after I got out of college. I wanted to start a video production company. And I had gotten an engineering degree, no business experience, no business classes, and I didn't like engineering. So I quit my engineering job 6 months after I graduated, started, was like, nope, and then I left, started a company, and it was just like a photography, videography business. And I think that I probably operated for 6 months, maybe 9 months of just like I had a business bank account, but I was like scanning in receipts and stuff. And I was like, I mean, I was looking at stuff. I didn't really know. But I remember a friend of mine was like, hey, my dad's an accountant. You should just like talk to him. And he was like, so what are you doing to manage like all of your expenses and stuff? And I was like, oh, well, I scan it in. And even to this day, I was like, what are you going to do with a bunch of receipts, Chris? Like, I don't know I was just like saving them. And he was like, well, you should look at QuickBooks. And I was like, well, like, how much does that cost? Why would I need that? Like, what's that going to do for me? What if I just use Excel or whatever? And he was like, Chris, just get QuickBooks. Trust me. I don't even know how to explain to you like all the benefits, but you need to have something to manage payments and invoices and just everything. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like it's a guy, like my friend's dad, I trusted him. And now it's like laughable that someone would hit like on day one of a business that you wouldn't have QuickBooks or some accounting software. And I'm sure there's many other scenarios like that. That's just like we don't know what we don't know. And if you think that it's literally just like people pay me checks and I deposit them and then I write checks to other people and that's pretty much it, right? It's like no, 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 no. There's like a lot of stuff that is there.
exactly, exactly. One of the other systems that has really helped us to organize the field side of things is Smart Sheets. Um, we really enjoy that system. That has organized our production from the time the job is sold to the time that it's finished and the final invoice is paid. That's been a really, really beautiful system for us. And one of my guys is really good at it. He's really good at changing columns around and adding things and separating it out so people see just what they need to see, not everything, and get really confused about it. So that's another one that I'd really recommend.
That's awesome. Um, the other thing that I'm just thinking that you said earlier that is I feel like is it's actually tied into the review software that we have that businesses use of ours, the Boolean system. But you mentioned that you grew too fast and you fell on your face. There's a lot of people that lost trust in your business. Um, well, before I guess I'll make the analogy first. I think that that's there's a lot of fear that people have, I think business owners have, of like, if we ask someone for feedback, if it's private, that's fine because we want to get that feedback. But where they're very scared to ask for public, just like, hey, leave us a review and tell the world about your experience. And they always want to curate it, and they want to like, make sure that it's going to be great. And I understand the desire to do that, but there's a bunch of reasons I can get into on why I don't think that's a great idea generally. But one of them I would say is that when a customer gives you negative feedback, that's not the end of the story. And it sounds like in your case, maybe it was pretty bad. Like I don't know how many customers were, pissed off or frustrated, but do you have any like nuggets or wisdom on like, so we screwed up and then what happened next? And was there a happy ending? Or I'm sure in some cases there was, some cases there wasn't. But how did you make that right? Because I'm sure, just knowing from what you've told me about yourself, I doubt that you were like, "Well, shoot, we're going to get out of town and move to the new city, so my reputation is, no one knows about it." Like, obviously, I assume, you work to make, what's the word, a resolution that was as satisfactory as possible with those situations.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something you have to. That's a matter of personal integrity too, Chris. Yes, if you screwed up, it's on you to fix it, and that's definitely part of what what I believe is the only way you can truly run a business. But for myself, it was more about the fact that I was losing the referrals of other people saying, yeah, he's a good guy. He'll do good work, or he'll bring it through. Well, just the quality of the work, or actually, it was more about the quality of the people I brought in and didn't oversee well. And I didn't catch on to it soon enough. I just wasn't viewing the work. I expected a certain quality of work, and showed them how to do it, and figured they were going to do it, and didn't. So making it right was the easy part. And to me, it always should be. If you haven't done something well, or if you didn't do what you said you were going to do, then it's on you to fix that. Um, it's now it goes into the ripples of people saying, I don't know if I would recommend him. So all of a sudden, a lot of your referrals are gone, and you've lost that trust, that general trust in the community. It's being able to build that back up. Um, I think was my biggest challenge then, was getting back to saying I can consistently give people the job that I promised them that I'm going to do with whoever's doing it within my company, and they're going to consistently get that same result, and they're going to want to say, yeah, no, either he's bounced back, or if they haven't had that negative experience, just you can trust this company to give you good work. As far as the reviews go, I've never really been bothered by bad reviews, in the sense of, um, if I didn't do it well, I can admit it. And if I have done actually good work, and it's the customer that is just unreasonable in their expectations, typically when they're writing that review, I trust that most of the general public, when they read it, they're going to know exactly what kind of person that is. You kind of sense from what the review is about whether that was realistic or not. So I'll take any review, and I'll answer the reviews as courteously as possible. Um, but to back that up, we have also found out that there are some customers that are not a good fit for us. And the sooner that we can figure that out together as early as the estimate, it just doesn't seem like their expectations are going to match what we think is a reasonable kind of result. Then maybe it's better to part ways at that point, and say, hey, we might not be the best fit for you for doing your work. Thanks so much for the opportunity, but it's probably best that you find somebody else.
Yeah. I'm just looking. I had to pull up your account, and this is just hats off to you guys. I'm sure you guys are tracking this, but you've been in business for 30. Has it been John Deck Painting for 36 years?
No, it started out as John's decorating service.
I was
I got
wondering where the
into it.
John Deck came from.
Yeah, and then I shortened it up there. I got into it on the fly. I quit teaching, and I joined the company that I had worked for in the summer, and then they had union troubles, and they got kicked off of that project. So I joined the union company that took over this new construction project, and they had promised me there's plenty of work, and literally 4 months later they let me go. and, and I'm a dad, 3 kids, a wife, and 3 kids, and I need to do something. So that's actually how I got into it. Was like, I'm on my own. I got to figure this out. So
Ah,
yeah.
interesting. Because I was going to say that I think you've been using Boolean for 2 years now, or close to, but I haven't looked at. I don't go around and typically review in detail. But since we're talking about it, you had a so 200. You have 248 5-star reviews, or 243 technically, but you have had one-star review in the last 5 years, 4 years, and it was a year ago. And just like you're saying, the review is like, just a horrible, unprofessional company. Workers look dirty and smell of cigarettes, make my home smell as well. Work was sloppy. Estimator is a liar. Waste of money. And it's just like, okay, interesting. And then it's like, but somehow 247 other people didn't sense that. So it's like, that's exactly like how. And the fact, like, you have a 4.9 rating, it's unbelievable. 248, and like every single recent review that you've gotten, and you're getting like, multiple every week. That's what the business should be focused on, is just like consistently hitting that. Like, we're getting a couple every week, get a couple more great reviews. And the one crazy person, people literally look at that and they're just like, all right, well, I mean, I don't know what this guy's talking about. And it's also, yeah, I just feel like you guys obviously are doing something right to have that level of satisfaction. And then also, I love that your mindset is just like, if we make a mistake, we're going to make it right. And then you just have to know that there's people that might not be satisfied, or they're crazy or whatever. And you don't worry about those.
It is a hard lesson, though. I mean, it's hard not to take it personally. Something doesn't go right, or even if things did go right and somebody's still not satisfied, it's difficult not to take it personally. But that's what you have to do. You step outside of that, take the emotion out of it, and let's get to a resolution. That's the first thing. Try to get to a resolution, and then if again something is just so unreasonable it can't be, then let the chips fall where they may and move on.
Yeah, totally. Um, awesome. Well, what other things are on your mind about your experience over the years?
One of the things I put in this list of things to maybe to talk about is being okay with being a different kind of business than other businesses, in the sense of there's not one perfect model to be a painting contractor that you're going to be successful and everything's going to work out for you. There's so many variables in running a business to begin with, and then it can be as much as like geography. What kind of place are you in? Are you in the suburbs? Are you in the country? Are you downtown? Those kinds of things can make a difference. But also, um, what's your personality? What are your gifts and strengths that can be so different than somebody else's? Um, so I think a lot of guys will fall into the idea that everybody needs to be able to have a very successful painting business by doing these things, or going after this kind of work. You're going to be much more successful if you're doing commercial work or just residential repaint or new construction, and all of those actually can be done together, but more often it's about the mindset that you have and the kind of work that you like or are successful at, um, that will help you to be more confident and then more successful in what you're doing. Let's just take new construction for. Well, I cut my teeth on new construction, and it was like, hey, we're going to do a stain job today. Then it's a seal up the trim. We're going to varnish it. We're going to do the prime job. We're going to do the paint job, and it's production work, and you're going from one unit to another unit, or one house to another. And that can be a very satisfactory kind of thing, especially if you have general contractors that are good to work with. Um, but I got bored after a while. It was like, okay, it's one more thing after another, and that's just not my personality. I wanted a challenge, So, well, getting into the wallpaper part was good. I really enjoyed that, and then finding all different kinds of wallpaper to install. And man, again, back in the '90s, The general contractors I was working with, they were doing some condos, and along with it, you always got 3 bathrooms papered and the front entry. That was part of their deal. So okay, well, that's a little bit more interesting. And then I find homeowners that not only love you wallpapering their bedroom, they want the closet wallpapered, for crying out loud. And maybe we'll try putting a little wallpaper on the ceiling, and then we have borders that got to be really fancy, and we got to have 3 levels of borders that we have to install. But it was challenging. It was interesting. So it was like, okay, I'm going to get more into the residential wallpapering, repainting kind of thing, because I like that more. There's a different challenge every day. Oh, okay, that's a lot of fun. Um, and then I was doing a lot of that work myself, and I was like, okay, this is fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this for 20 years either. My body's already getting a little beat up, but more than that, it was like, what else is out there? So, what would it be like if I could hire somebody who could do some painting with me and take this part of it on or that part of it on? I remember really clearly, Chris, the first time that I was able to actually have somebody doing work for me when I took a long weekend with my family, and I actually had revenue coming in when I wasn't working. It was like, wow, what a concept this is.
I know
You know,
exactly what you're talking about.
it's just so personality wise, I like to keep getting to the next step. Okay, how can I get a little bit smaller company? Then I grow too fast, I had to back off again. All right, then who do I hook up with that can help me to get to a more stable company? And how do I find people then that can do other things? For me, that was what drove me. I have some really good friends in the business. The one guy, Carl Steen from Steen Decorating, he's up in northern Michigan now. He's been a wallpaper hanger extraordinaire for years and years, and loves doing it, and has built a tremendous reputation. He's a tremendous guy. He never had the desire to become a big company. He's had a few guys working for him and taught a lot of people how to work, but he's very comfortable doing what he did and loved what he was doing. Then don't try to be a bigger business. Love what you're doing, and be content with that.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's kind
awesome.
of where I'm coming from is well, know what suits you, and find a way to be content with it.
Did it take you a while to come to that like place that you're at now?
Yes, yes, it did.
Like how many years into the painting business was it where you were like, you know what? I don't need to be X revenue just because everybody else that I know is doing it. I'm just going like, where did that? Because I feel like I mean, my podcast is called The Pursuit of Purpose. That's something that I'm very aware of for myself, and I love talking about is pursuing and doing what I would say is like God's calling or God's will for your life, but then also and doing hard stuff, but at the same time just being content along that entire journey. And that's a difficult balance to go back and forth between. And I'm curious where like when did that, you know, peacefulness or contentment of that idea like settle in for you?
I had 2 places where it happened. I would say about 10 years in. I want to say, let's see, 87, maybe 7 or 8 years in. I had built up the business a little bit. I was just starting to get more people working for me, and my wife and I had an opportunity to become worship leaders at a fairly large church, and I wanted to do that too. So we led worship. I led choir. She had an orchestra and a brass group, and a children's choir and bells. And I was able to do both. I was able to run a small company and do almost half time at the church with my wife, and it was wonderful. And that's what I wanted to pursue at that time. Eventually, that came to an end for the church, and at that point, it was like, okay, now what am I going to do? That was 20 years later when I finally figured out that, okay, I'm through that part. I'm 20 years into this now. Now what's ahead of me? And that's when I signed up with my coach, and have been much more content that way. Just being able to see the business expand and loving parts of it, and loving even more finding the people that are doing the things that, like I said, that they do that better than I did. That's been such a sweet spot for me.
That's awesome. Well, moving into a couple closing questions. Well, first, before I say that, before we do that, I'll give you another. We got another 3 to 5 minutes. What anything else on your mind that you came into the podcast wanting to share? I always like just everyone's got something on their heart or mind that is could be what we've been talking about or something totally random. But I'll give you that opportunity before we go into the wrap up.
Hmm. That's something I hadn't really thought about, Chris. This is to me. This is looking back on a career. My career will be over sometime in the near future, I would guess. Um, Although I'm still enjoying it, and I would say that as I look back on the journey, um, I can see so many good things that came from tough times, and getting through those. Um, that that I would say that through faith and through having a lot of good people around me, I've been able to get through some very difficult times, including COVID, and getting down to some pretty tough times in the business and bouncing back. Um, Staying true to yourself, to your faith, to knowing what you want to be, and then having good people around you, man, that makes life rich. And the tough times, you know, you have the faith and the hope that you'll get through those. Um, but they in a weird kind of way, they expand the richness of what you've been able to do too. So I've been blessed to have a very rich life that way.
That's awesome. Um, Thank you very. This has just been. It's always. That's why I love podcasting. I just love this, just the wisdom and the nuggets and talking about life and the struggles and journey and everything. It's awesome. So I appreciate you sharing all that. Last couple questions I have for you: book recommendations. I love reading. I listen to a lot of books, but I always like to know what people are reading, what they've consumed, what is good out there that I maybe have not heard of.
Favorite little book, QBQ, The Question Behind the Question. It's by John Miller. It's a short little book, but it talks about personal responsibility. And I've used this throughout. I don't know how many years. I was just talking with my sales team about it, going through a little slump there and talking about QBQ, what kinds of questions you need to ask. And there's one little phrase in that book, because we're going through a little bit of a difficult time now getting enough leads. It's like it's a story about a dad taking his daughter up into in an airplane above Lake Michigan. The engine stops, and he turns to his daughter and says, "I got to fly the plane differently." I love that phrase. Through tough times, what do you have to do differently? How do you have to fly your plane differently? There's a lot of little stuff like that in this QBQ. It's such a quick read, but I've really enjoyed that. Um, Another one that I've read that I really like too is Leadership is an Art, and that's by Max Dupree. Um, a really nice book on leadership and what leadership is, and how to experience it and how to grow in it. And one of the books I read recently, that I've enjoyed, is Nine Lies About Work, and that's by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall. Nine Lies About Work. This one I found really intriguing because it made me think. So, for example, they say the first lie is that people care which company they work for. And their point generally, again, very brief summary, they say no, they like they care about the team that they work with, not the company. If on the local level you're really satisfied with your team and feeling fulfilled with the team, it's much more important than the company itself. And then line
Ah,
number 8, work-life balance means the most. And they talk about something they call red threads. What are the things that you really love that keep you in place? It's not just work-life balance. It's these red threads that just motivate you, and you don't have to have 100% red threads. If you have enough of these red threads that go through your work and through your home life, and they combine together, that's more important than this work-life balance. So anyway, Nine Lies About Work. That was a pretty good book.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to add that to the list. And my last question for you is um, favorite movie. What's your favorite movie?
like I said at the beginning, when we were just chatting, I'm not a big movie buff. So I'm going to give you actually the last movie that I watched that I thoroughly appreciated. I enjoyed it, but not in the typical way of a. It's not a movie that is just kind of easy to just go through and laugh and everything. But Sound of Freedom that came out not too long ago. Um, I really respect that movie. It moved me, and I would encourage people to go watch Sound of Freedom. Sounds of Freedom.
The weekend that it came out, obviously there's a lot of buzz around that. My wife and I got tickets. We're going to support this for sure. And then we just had so much going on. So we donated our tickets to the cause because I heard so many good things about it. But you're just like the fourth person this week that it just keeps coming up. And I'm like, we got to go buy tickets again and go see that. But no, I have heard similar things like you're saying from everyone that's watched it. So, John, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. If someone has further questions or wants to get in touch, what is your preferred method that they do that?
They can reach out to me at my name is John Van Groningen. That's just my first and last name, JohnVanGroningen at iCloud.com.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks so much again. This was fun, and we'll see you around.
Chris, appreciate the invitation. It was great to talk with you. Blessings for the rest of the week.
Thank you for your attention and listening to this episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Your feedback and comments mean the world to me. If you liked what you heard, please take a second, leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. If you've got suggestions for future episodes or just want to say hi, shoot me an email at chris@chriskiefer.com. Don't forget, I make it a point to include all the links to the books, movies, and resources mentioned on this episode in the show notes. You can see those directly below in the description or on my website, chriskiefer.com. Thanks so much, guys.